Hello, everybody. My name is Hastur, and today we will be going over more in depth into what is propaganda. Specifically, we will be going over some of the techniques of propaganda. This is going to be part of about six, probably, videos uh, dissecting different forms of propaganda that are often seen. If you would like to follow along as I spout some technical jargon, you'll recognize that one in the future. You can follow along on the Agloa website, agloa.org. You can find the propaganda tab underneath games played and propaganda rules and documents. You can follow along with all of the sections and a brief introduction explaining what is good forms of reasoning and how to avoid certain misconstrusions. I think construction is an actual word, but you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, as we get into this, bear in mind that very rarely will propaganda only ever come in one form. It is a beast of 1,000 faces. So be sure to always keep in mind that there is nuance to propaganda. Just because you can clearly make out one thing does not mean that there are other things drawing the line, like down the line, not drawing the line. Sorry. So to begin, we will be going over section A, which is the techniques of self-deception, which are the techniques of self-deception. Words are terribly difficult, sorry. So, as we begin, let us go over number 1 in their list. Be sure to follow along. We have prejudice. Prejudice. My handwriting is terrible. I'm not going to apologize. It's been like this for forever. Prejudice is effectively you having an anchor and you not wanting to see everything else because you are already anchored in one spot. A good example of this would be I've had bad interactions with a certain restaurant. I'm never going there. All right. Now, that restaurant could have changed hands. It could have just been one server that you kept getting. It could have been a multitude of things that you don't really see because it is only from your perspective. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it oftentimes leads to an incapacity to further investigate something. A good example of this is, and prejudice comes in like varying degrees. Like if you, like, for instance, who here in the audience has had an older brother or an older sibling go through school, and when you get to the teacher says, "Oh, you're their sibling." That's prejudice. Basically, one bad apple has spoiled the bunch. That is the joys of prejudice. Following that, after prejudice, we have academic detachment. It's not going to get any better than this. Academic detachment is effectively, I'm going to both sides this until I actually have to take a side. A good example of this is, well, both sides need to do such and such. You can definitely see it nowadays with both sides need to turn down the temperature. But then when it comes time to actually do something, it is, now I'm not going to choose a side. To better quote their definition, yes, as the gamebook definition, you can follow along. We refuse to commit ourselves when a decision or action is demanded, not demonstrated. I can't read. In a situation requiring a stand to be taken, we see or think we see persuasive arguments on both sides. But certain situations, for example, voting, require decision and action of one kind or another. Here, instead of trying to remain neutral, we must make a decision on the basis of what side seems to have the greater weight of evidence. So, like the both sides argument is academic detachment. And oftentimes in the modern day, you will see both sides need to turn down the temperature. And then people will say, they will cite some numerically faulty, I wouldn't even call it a study because it's not a study. It is, in fact, numbers, which we'll be going over in, I believe it's section C. Let me double check. Yes, section C of irrelevance, but that is a different video. So getting back to section A, academic detachment is I'm going to both sides of this and I'm going to fence sit. Yes. So that is the joys of academic detachment. Following that, we have 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are tied together. They are very similar, but noticeably different. And you'll understand why in a moment. So number 3. Sorry, my handwriting is horrendous. Drawing the line. Number 4 is not drawing the line. Now, as you can definitely see, I am drawing a line between these two to make a very important distinction. Drawing the line is binary choice. All right, you have a 0 or a 1. There is no in between. You are with us or against us. You are either a gun-toting, rootin', shooting, beer-drinking American, or you are a compassionate, heartfelt, and friendly, also American, I guess, technically. So you are either part of the red team or the blue team, and you are not allowed to be anything in between here. When it comes to not drawing the line is basically, well, you kind of have the red and you kind of have the blue, but then you also have like the purples, you have the yellows, you have the greens, and you don't really have to make a choice. But that's also kind of getting into academic detachment, which is why I mentioned earlier that propaganda usually has a few different facets to it. But the main thing you'll notice with not drawing the line is you have to make A or B decision, but I'm not going to hold you to A or B. Yep. Well, you've been sick Monday through Thursday. I'm not going to send you back to school on Friday just to have you off Saturday and Sunday. Take Friday off of school and we'll have you go back on Monday extra charged. That is effectively not drawing the line. Whereas drawing the line is, are you sick? If you're not throwing up, then you're good enough to go to school. Meanwhile, you could be, hawking out a lung and not being able to not cough, but either you're puking or you're not puking. If you're not puking, you go to school. If you are puking, you stay home. No in between. Following that, we actually have number 5. Number 5 is a bit much. Number 5 is actually kind of 3 in 1. It is conservatism, radicalism, and moderatism. So we have rad, mod. So conservatism, ain't broke, don't fix it. Yep, we might as well just keep things the way they are. And there are merits to all of these. Don't get me wrong. So, yeah. Ain't broke. Radicalism is oftentimes people misconstrue it as change for the sake of change, which at times that is true. However, there is a nuance to it, and that is that sometimes a radical change needs to take place. A good example of this would be the abolition of segregation. And I can't remember the actual word because I suck at words. but integration for black students into prominently white schools. I believe it was Atlanta, Georgia was the best example of this, where I can't remember who it was, sent in National Guard in order to make sure that the new national standard of no segregation was being upheld at the state level. So radicalism is just the great change. Not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but oftentimes it is portrayed as change for the sake of change. Yes, we need to get rid of such and such because they're not doing anything. Oftentimes you'll see this through like I not to be partisan, but like anti-capitalism. You'll often see radicalism in that. We need to get rid of capitalism. Capitalism just causes problems. Well, radicalism basically just says change it and go to something wildly different. Whereas conservatism is, well, great granddaddy did it. Great granddaddy did it. Granddaddy did it. Dad did it. I'm going to do it too. Now, that thing could be potentially harmful, but it is also conservatism. All of these can be either good or bad. Most of the time when you see it in propaganda, it's bad. And then also moderatism. Moderatism is ship of Theseus, one plank at a time. So can never remember how to spell Theseus. I think it's... Oh, pass. I'm actually going to look it up just to double check. I was going to spell it right. It is EUS. God damn. Yes, ship of Theseus. One plank at a time. So, and it could be for better or it could be for worse. Once again, all of these can be either way. Most of the time, though, radicalism is just change for the sake of change. And this is also me showing off number one, prejudice of my anchor bias. And just as conservatism can keep around things that really shouldn't be, like old boys clubs, or as much as I disliked it, I'm going to rephrase this, I dislike segregation. It was conservatism that kept segregation in places like Atlanta, Georgia, and it required radicalism, the great change, to implement something better. This is like for perspective. Anyway, following this, we go on to rationalization. Rationalization is the... You saw nothing. Rationalization is effectively, I already think something. Yep. I think pancakes are not as good as waffles. I just think it. All right. I'm just using that as an example. But I will then find any nitpicky reason to justify my opinion as a fact. Like waffles can hold the syrup. Waffles are crunchy. Waffles don't taste like cake batter if they're undercooked. Well, all of these things seem true on face value, but it doesn't necessarily make them better. Once again, these are just supporting reasons for an opinion. Another thing of rationalization is, like, for instance, people will say someone is a bad person because of such and such. Like, we were the good guys because Hitler was the bad guy. Hitler was the bad guy, but during World War II, both sides did absolutely horrendous things. You want to look into it, look into how the Allied forces basically massacred like 10 million civilians by the end of the war. Don't get me wrong, Germans also, yeah, it was bad on both sides, but just the rationalization of, well, Hitler was the bad guy because we were the good guys, and he did this, and he did this, and he did that too. Well, now you're just trying to support your argument rather than having a good support, if that makes sense. Once again, going back to the waffles and pancakes, waffles can do this, pancakes can't do this. Thus, waffles must be better. So that is rationalization, is forcing the conclusion. Now we get on to wishful thinking. Wishful thinking you can guess what this is. Wow. Wishful thinking is just, I'm going to look at this as optimistically as possible and ignore anything that could possibly be construed as negative, right? You see this on both sides, like the wishful thinking of, we have enough resources, we can implement socialism here in the States. That is wishful thinking, because unfortunately, we have what we would describe as politicians and people. Socialism works when humans aren't involved. That's for damn sure. But wishful thinking dictates that, oh, we can do the best thing possible, but we can't if you actually look at it realistically. Yeah. The best way to put it is wishful thinking. If we give everyone in Africa food, everyone will get along and they won't fight. Well, that's wishful thinking. It's probably not going to happen. But getting off of wishful thinking, we go to tabloid thinking. So, tabloid thinking can be very similar to the following one of this, which is causal oversimplification, not to be confused with casual oversimplification, which isn't a thing. So, tabloid thinking effectively is, I'm going to take giant box, okay? Giant box has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And these are all different reasons of a large subject. Well, tabloid thinking is, I want to fit this into tiny box. Out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I want to fit all of that into one box so people can read it like in a tabloid. Well, the easiest way to do that is just to distill everything down to a very bare bones and not very informative form. For instance, I will recite Agloa here. Oh, there it is. Yes. As is per the gamebook definition of propaganda, to think in tabloids is to oversimplify a complex theory or set of circumstances. The tabloid thinker prefers quick summaries and has the habit of putting things in a nutshell. So it's just ignoring large swaths of things in order to like simplify it for someone else. For instance, a really good example of it would actually be oh, what was the guy's name? No, piss. I'm gonna have to think of someone else now. That'll drive me nuts until I remember him. But let's say you have, well, here, okay. There is an old meme where it is 3 world leaders during a certain time frame. One of them was a drunk. One of them was an adulterer, a cheater. And And the third one was he was a dog person, you know? All right. Now, out of all of these, one of these seems a lot better than the other, right? You would probably pick this one. This one's literally Hitler. Yeah. During World War II, Charlie Chaplin was known as a drunk. US president, I think it was Eisenhower at the time. I need a refresh. But Eisenhower was an adulterer, and Hitler was a vegan. He was a dog person. He was an artiste. He also killed like 6 million innocent civilians at least. And, well, of the ones that we've recorded for sure. It's oh, tabloid thinking can definitely be used to smear as much as it can be used to boost, because you are taking large swath of information and just distilling it down to what you believe to be the most important. 9 times out of 10, you will find them being used as stereotypes, not unlike prejudice, potentially for like Asians being good at math, or basketball Americans being invisible after 8 p.m. I'm joking. That is a joke. It's usually after 9 if they're wearing dark clothes. Or, you know, white people being racist. Like all of that is tabloid thinking, because it is ignoring a vast portion of things, and it's just distilling it down into, oh, a nutshell. But that is enough. Where the hell is my mouse? There it is. That's enough yammering on tabloid thinking. We will now be going on to causal oversimplification. Now, causal oversimplification is a lot like tabloid thinking. Tabloid thinking is trying to just put it, like, simplify it down into a nutshell. Whereas it's better to explain causal oversimplification as, let's say you have, hang on, let me write it down, that way you can find it. It's causal, not casual. Believe me, people get it wrong all the time. So causal oversimplification. Well, the best way to describe it is the only reason why World War II happened was because of tuberculosis. I'm dead serious. Or because of 9/11, we have Twilight. Or 50 Shades of Grey. Well, both, actually. Now, you might think, whoa, Hastur, what in God's name are you talking about? Well, going off the first one, TB at the time was basically a death sentence. Like, it would likely kill you. So TB was what caused the assassin of Frankfurt, or assassins, actually, because it was a party. The assassins of Frankie Ferdinand, you know, the guy that died and started World War I effectively, killed Frank Ferdinand. The reason why they did it was because they had tuberculosis. They were able to be talked into it. Because the Black Hand, basically evil Illuminati, said, yo, we want a new world order. We'll make sure that your family is well taken care of if you do this. And so the tuberculosis-ridden assassins were like, you know what? Okay. It also is arguable that World War II happened because we have sandwiches. Because the only reason why that guy right there, Ferdinand, Frankie, the only reason why he was killed was because one of the assassins went to get a sandwich. So, sandwich, I can't spell, but sandwich plus tuberculosis equals World War II and the severe mass murder of Jews. And I think there were also gypsies and blacks involved too. But basically, TB and sandwiches caused the death of Frank Ferdinand, which caused World War One. World War One. This causes Germany to get cucked. So because Deutschland is cucked, a certain ex World War One veteran, I guess he would be a World War One veteran. He's an ex-veteran now. World War One veteran, a certain mustachioed man, comes into power, and he utilizes his great pride as a German resident to become elected as president. God. So he becomes president. Which immediately leads into, well, not immediately, but very swiftly leads into World War II. So that is causal oversimplification. A bunch of things went into one large thing, but you can just break it down as, oh, TB and sandwiches. Yep. These two things right here caused World War II. That is causal oversimplification. And when it comes to 9/11 causing 50 Shades of Grey, My Chemical Romance's lead singer saw 9/11, and to deal with the sheer trauma of it, he started singing. My Chemical Romance initially caused Twilight. Like, it basically inspired the writer. And due to Twilight fan fiction, 50 Shades of Grey was created. So it was basically one of the two caused the other. But that is why we have 50 Shades of Grey, is because of 9/11. But anyway, enough causal oversimplification. Let's go to the last one. There we go. Inconceivability. I can't do a good impression. But inconceivability is the belief, and not unlike how prejudice is an anchored belief. But inconceivability is the, I can't see how it could happen. It just can't happen. It's like rationalization, but opposite. So inconceivability. That was a terrible line. That was also a terrible line. There we go. Inconceivability. So, as I can't really distill it any better than the gamebook definition of, you declare a proposition to be false simply because you cannot conceive it actualized or possible of realization. The sun does not rotate around the world? What are you, nuts? Don't you know it goes from the one side and goes to the other? I mean, come on, the world's flat. I can't imagine, the Earth being round and going around a flat sun. That just doesn't make any sense. Inconceivability. There's not much of a greater way to describe it. Although, sometimes you can find instances of people refusing to believe something. And at times, it can actually be caused by who it comes from. A good example of this would be like how RFK is very critical of vaccines. Like, he doesn't want a bunch going all at once. And he has said this multiple times. He's not anti-vax. He's just pro-critique. But you can call that, a little bit of propaganda. But people will hear him say, we don't need such and such. Or, you shouldn't take aspirin when pregnant. Well, it's inconceivable that he would be right because it's coming from him. So I'm going to take a bunch of aspirin and you just almost killed yourself. That is inconceivability. But with all that being said, I will also go over in this video, I will go over forms of reasoning. There are 4 that are cited on Aglow's website, and these ones are pretty universal. They are the rules of detachment, the rules of contrapositives, and disjunctive and hypothetical syllogism. To best put it, I will actually put this down. Detachment. If 1, then 2. I see 2, therefore there has to be a 1. That is detachment. Contrapositive is if it's basically this but backwards, right? If not 1, then not 2. There is not 2, therefore there is not 1. And yes, I realize that I should be putting prime in the front, but I'm not going to do that. All right. Now, syllogism, we have disjunctive, which is basically A or B. We have not A, thus we have B. Now, and this works both ways. Now, a hypothetical syllogism is a little bit different than these, and it is very easy to confuse this for a faulty analogy. So let me just separate those. So hypothetical syllogism is if P then Q, and I'm quoting right from the paper. So if A, then B. If B, then C. Therefore, if A, then C. Now this is very easy to misconstrue for a faulty analogy. Okay? Because it requires there to be more factors at play that you aren't including. So hypothetical is A then C because of A, B, C. A faulty analogy can be, hang on. Faulty analogy is very similar. But I need to add like a little asterisk here because it requires a greater leap in logic. A good example of this is for the hypothetical. Let's say I'm going to be playing a sports ball game. Let's say hockey. All right. If I don't practice for the team, like I don't do anything to try to get on the team, I won't get on the team. If I don't get on the team, I won't play any games. Thus, because I don't try for the team, I don't play games. That makes sense because it is quite literally one leading to the other through a secondary thing right here. Faulty analogy is that, like, let's say I go to a party, okay? If I go to the party, I will drink. If A, then B. If I drink, I will crash my car when I drive home. Well, you can avoid C by taking precautions prior, because C isn't directly connected to these due to other things. If you want a better version of, or another version of it, they do provide it on the Aglow website. For instance, 2 of them, and along with that, faulty analogy can be used kind of backwards, like such. I have C. C can mean A, and C can be B. Thus, because C can be A or B, A and B must be equals. Or A and B must therefore be connected, which isn't necessarily true. But to go off with the first one, if I don't party, I won't crash my car. Well, that's not necessarily true, because I can crash my car not going to the party, or I could just not take my car to the party and thus not crash. Whereas with the other one, where is it? There it is. With the other one, let's say, what's a good way to put this? Well, they have a fairly good example, whereas all squares are quadrilaterals, right? C is quadrilaterals, right? Now, all squares are quadrilaterals. All parallelograms, I think. I don't remember. It's been a while. But, oh, yep, that's actually the one that they use. Yep, so all parallelograms are quadrilaterals. Therefore, squares must be quadrilaterals. They're not. They just aren't. So that is a good example of faulty analogies and how similar they can be to like actual hypothetical instances. Now, that being said, this version of faulty analogy will come up again later under a different name. But effectively, that is what it is I'm making an analogy based on faulty logic. Same goes with overheat. Same goes with that. But all that being said, that was propaganda section A. I hope you guys enjoyed it for the most part. I know my sultry voice and the very grand lack of editing in this video is going to be a drag. But don't worry, there are going to be another 5 of these. With all that being said, I would like to ask that you hit the like button if you liked it. And if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you can listen to more of my incoherent ramblings. But in the end, that was Hastur. See ya.